I don't know about you, but some of my best ideas have come to me when I wasn't thinking. And some very accomplished people believe the same thing. Because Bill Gates, he schedules Think Weeks as an annual practice where he dedicates a full week to focus, undistracted thinking and reflection. And this is something that most of the successful people in history have in common. They've mastered the art of doing nothing. And guess what? Neuroscience has proven that your most brilliant insights happen when you're bored, and that quitting might actually be the highest form of intelligence. Hey, friend, I'm Christy, a board certified nurse practitioner, health coach, and trauma survivor. Welcome to Trauma Free, where I help you change your mind and change your life just like I did. Today, we're not just challenging what you think about success, we're about to reveal why everything you've been taught is a lie. Right now, as you're watching this, millions of people are doom scrolling through productivity content, desperately trying to optimize their way to happiness. Since 2010, the same decade productivity culture exploded on social media, rates of anxiety and depression have skyrocketed by 70% among high achievers because the very strategies that we're using to succeed are making us sick. And I've discovered something that will make you reconsider what you think you know about these productivity hacks that they're pushing and these false versions of success that they're selling. Science says that it's not just ineffective, but it's actually hurting your potential. Recent research reveals that high performers do the exact opposite of what we're told. So get ready because I'm going to destroy everything you think you know about achievement and rebuild it using actual science. Here's the most costly lie in human history: that suffering will lead to success. It was shown in the largest workplace study ever conducted that happy employees aren't just 12% more productive, they're 37% better at sales, 3 times more creative in problem solving, and have 23% lower levels of stress related illnesses. But here's the thing: happiness, it changes your brain's chemistry. When you're genuinely content, your brain produces more BDNF, or brain derived neurotrophic factor, which supports new neural connections. Stressed brains, on the other hand, they flood with cortisol, which actually shrinks your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision making and creativity. So we've had it backwards this entire time because traditional thinking consists of struggling along with grinding and sacrificing, hoping that it will lead you to success and possible happiness. But in reality, being content causes enhanced cognition for better decisions, leading to sustainable success and more happiness. And this isn't some new age BS because Leonardo da Vinci described his best work coming from odium, which is purposeful leisure. In ancient Greeks had a concept called eudaimonia, where they encouraged flourishing through well-being and not suffering. However, the hedonic treadmill explains why successful people often feel hollow inside because your brain has a happiness set point. With every achievement, promotion, or salary increase triggering a massive dopamine surge. But within 3 to 6 months, your brain returns to baseline, and the very neurochemicals that motivated you to achieve success now requires a bigger hit to feel the same satisfaction. This is why Oscar winners are 29% more likely to develop addiction issues in the year following their win, why lottery winners return to their original happiness levels within 18 months, and why tech billionaires often report feeling more anxious than they did before they even succeeded. Neuroscience research has revealed something alarming. chronic achievers show brain patterns identical to gambling addicts because we're addicted to the neurochemical surge we get with success, while having genuine contentment is what actually creates sustainable happiness. This will completely change how you think about productivity. The default mode network, or DMN, is possibly the most important discovery in neuroscience history because it was found that when people stopped actively thinking, their brains didn't shut down. They actually became more active. Your resting brain consumes 20% more glucose than when you're focused on tasks. So your brain is working harder when you're staring out the window than when you're reading emails. The default mode network connects three crucial brain regions: the medial prefrontal cortex, or self-reflection, the posterior cingulate cortex, or memory consolidation, and the angular gyrus, or conceptual processing. When these regions connect to each other during downtime, big things can happen. DMN activation leads to internal reflection, where your brain is building new neural pathways, connecting seemingly unrelated information and solving problems that you're not even thinking about. This explains why breakthrough moments happen in the shower, during walks, or right before sleep. The most original ideas emerge when the executive attention network, or focused thinking, relaxes its control, allowing the DMN to make new connections. But in our modern life, with constant stimulation from our phones and constant notifications, this prevents the DMN activation. A study actually found that people who purposely introduce boredom into their lives showed 41% improvement in creative problem solving within just 1 week. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day. That's once every 10 minutes while they're awake, and each interruption resets the 23-minute window that research has shown it takes to enter deep creative states. So your next epiphany is waiting in the space between your thoughts, and it's only accessible when you give your brain permission to do nothing. This will change how you understand your own psychology. As you're pursuing success, your brain is running sophisticated programs designed to keep you small. And the closer you get to your dreams, the harder it fights against you. There's something called the upper limit problem that reveals something scary. Your amygdala screams danger because you're visible. Your hippocampus floods you with memories of every time visibility led you to pain. And your prefrontal cortex, it gets taken over, making you think that the threat is real. And research has proved this using MRI technology. Those neural pathways get activated when we face career opportunities because your brain thinks that a job interview might really harm you. For example, the tall poppy syndrome exists in every human society. Australia cuts down achievers, and Japan has the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. So we're collectively evolved to fear our own potential. This explains why 70% of high achievers report imposter syndrome, why Nobel Prize winners often feel like frauds, and why tech billionaires have higher rates of anxiety disorders than the general population. Success triggers imposter syndrome, which is your brain's desperate attempt to pull you back to safety. It creates a neurochemical cocktail identical to social rejection. Your brain releases the same stress hormones when you succeed as when you're being excluded. So people who understand that self-doubt is a survival mechanism can override it by simply learning that your brain is designed to fear success, which reduces imposter syndrome symptoms by 40% within just 30 days. When you achieve something, your brain needs 12 to 20 seconds of conscious processing to rewire fear patterns so you don't have to eliminate your self-doubt. You have to recognize it as your brain's attempt to keep you safe. Once you understand that your greatest fear isn't failure but success itself, everything changes. This may go against every motivational thing you've ever heard, but it might be the truth that you need to know. Because the highest form of intelligence isn't persistence, it's knowing when to quit. We live in a culture that praises pushing through, but the most successful people in history are quitters. And research proves that people who strategically quit unfulfilling projects report 23% higher long term success, 31% higher life satisfaction, and make 18% more money throughout their careers. We're wired to make terrible quitting decisions because of the sunk cost fallacy, which is your brain's inability to ignore past investments when making future decisions, because thinking about wasted effort activates the same pain centers as physical injury. This is why people stay in toxic relationships and dead end jobs, because their brains can't realize what's wasting their time. But people who learn to quit were 34% more likely to find their ideal career path. Every moment spent on the wrong thing is a moment taken from discovering the right thing. Believe it or not, it has been shown that people who survive life threatening situations share one trait: they abandon failing strategies faster than others. So, the same mental flexibility that saves their lives in emergencies creates breakthrough success in their careers. Quitting isn't giving up, it's giving yourself permission to find what's truly worth your time and energy. This might be uncomfortable, but it could save you from decades of unconscious self sabotage because invisible programs are running your life, making your decisions before your conscious mind even gets involved. Humans aren't making conscious choices. We're following unconscious scripts written by our past experiences, cultural programming, and evolutionary wiring. We think we're the authors of our lives, but we're actually actors reading from scripts we didn't even write. Because 95% of our decisions happen below conscious awareness. Your brain creates cognitive chunks, which are automated response patterns that fire faster than conscious thought. These scripts are supposed to make life efficient, but they often make it limited. And researchers have identified three dominant scripts that control most people's professional lives, and recognizing yours might be the most important insight to change this. The first script is: I've always done X, so I must keep doing X. This is the most common script, affecting 67% of professionals due to identity foreclosure, which is when we commit to an identity before exploring alternatives. People stuck in these scripts show decreased activity in the brain's anterior temporal lobe, the region responsible for imagining alternative futures. So they essentially lose the ability to conceive different possibilities. The second is: I need everyone to approve. This script affects 45% of high achievers because our brains prioritize group acceptance above individual authenticity. A study on social rejection showed that the same brain regions light up as physical pain when rejected. And it's been shown that people pleasers earn 18% less, report 31% lower job satisfaction, and have 24% higher rates of anxiety disorders. So the very strategy meant to ensure acceptance actually diminishes respect and opportunities. When you suppress authentic responses to please others, your brain's reward system, or ventromedial prefrontal cortex, shows decreased activation. So you basically train your brain that your genuine thoughts and feelings don't matter. The third script is: if it's not huge, then it's worthless. This script affects 38% of ambitious people, and it's often mistaken for thinking big. But it's actually a sophisticated form of procrastination because sustainable change happens through tiny habits, actions so small they're almost impossible to fail at. But if you start with ridiculously small commitments like doing 2 push ups, you are 78% more likely to maintain long term behavior change than those who set ambitious goals because big, inspiring goals have a 92% failure rate, while embarrassingly small goals have a 67% success rate. Escaping these scripts requires metacognition, which is the ability to think about your thinking, because people with high metacognitive awareness are 43% more likely to achieve their goals due to their ability to observe their automatic patterns without being controlled by them. So once you recognize your dominant script, you can rewrite it. What we call overnight success is actually an illusion because 73% of those overnight sensations have been strategically building for more than 10 years. The breakthrough moment that everyone sees represents just 3% of their actual journey. So, what looks like sudden success is actually growth over time. Small, consistent improvements seem invisible until they reach a point where growth becomes visible. We've been told to work harder, sacrifice more, push through, ignore your body, suppress your emotions, compete relentlessly, and maybe someday you'll have happiness. But what we really should be doing is working intelligently, quitting strategically, experimenting constantly, listening to your intuition, honoring your values, collaborating generously, and letting fulfillment guide your choices every single day. There are countless ways to create a meaningful life, and your slow progress might be building something more sustainable than any quick fix ever could. And your willingness to quit might open doors that struggling never would have. The question isn't whether you're successful by someone else's timeline or definition. The question is which version of success honors who you actually are rather than who you think you should be. I want to hear from you. Are you ready to experiment with a different definition of success? Because the data tells us which way to go. Share your thoughts in the comments. And until next time, stay trauma free and take care.